Alright, listen up folks, because Cardi B just detonated a bomb on the internet and the shrapnel is flying in every direction you can imagine, and if you thought last week was messy, you have absolutely no idea what Cardi B has cooked up in the last 48 hours. Cardi B dropped a snippet, casual, playful, 30 seconds of pure heat over a beat that already sounds like a summer club takeover, and in that snippet Cardi B delivered the line that has now become the most argued about lyric of the month. A man can't trap me, I won't keep him. Simple. Sharp. Written like Cardi B writes everything, in her own tongue, in her own accent, in that same Bronx cadence that made the entire world stop and pay attention back when Bodak Yellow first hit the airwaves. But almost immediately after Cardi B posted that clip, the internet did what the internet always does. They took the line. They flipped the line. They rewrote the line. And within hours, half of Twitter was convinced Cardi B was talking about doing something to a baby, which is not what Cardi B said, not what Cardi B meant, and not what any reasonable person listening should have heard, and Cardi B is now openly furious about the deliberate misreading. That misreading, that specific, weaponized, deliberately ugly misreading, is what forced Cardi, and this time Cardi B was not letting it slide, not for a second, not for a syllable, not for the length of a single breath before firing straight back at the camera. Because here is what Cardi B was actually saying. Cardi B was saying that just because a man puts a baby in her, that does not mean he owns her, does not mean he gets to keep her, does not mean she is stuck in some relationship because of a shared child. Cardi B was saying she will pack the baby, pack herself, and walk out the door if the situation is not right. Cardi B was saying that a baby is not a leash, a baby is not a hostage, a baby is not a bargaining chip a man can use to trap a woman into staying. And when Cardi B says it out loud, in her own voice, on her own live, with her own face on the screen, the meaning is undeniable and the intent is crystal clear. But of course the internet had already sprinted 80 miles down the wrong hallway, and Cardi B had to sprint even faster to drag the conversation back where it belongs. The interesting part is Cardi B did not panic while she did it, Cardi B did not raise her voice, Cardi B did not cry on camera for sympathy points, Cardi B just corrected the record like a woman who has done this exact dance 100 times and lost patience with it. Now here is where it gets even louder, because the second Cardi B started explaining that lyric, a whole different section of the timeline pivoted and tried to attach the bar to Stefon Diggs, because that is where the internet always lands whenever Cardi B says anything about men, babies, or moving on. The theory going around was that Cardi B was subliminally sending shots at Stefon Diggs, hinting that Stefon Diggs tried to lock her down with a child, hinting at some hidden storyline behind the scenes of that relationship, and honestly you can see why people jumped there, because the timing of the record, the timing of the lyric, the timing of the breakup all lines up in a way that makes the conspiracy write itself. But Cardi B is not confirming any of that. Cardi B is not putting Stefon Diggs on trial in a lyric. Cardi B is doing what Cardi B has always done, which is speak in universal truths that any woman who has been through it can nod along to, and if a specific man wants to feel called out, that is between him and the mirror. That is the Cardi B special, a bar that feels custom cut for a single target but scales up to speak for millions of women who never had the microphone to say it themselves. Let me remind you exactly who Cardi B is, because context matters here, and context is why this whole moment is landing so hard. Cardi B is not a woman who talks around a thing. Cardi B, that is the part that hurts, and that is the part that a lot of the loudest critics are refusing to say out loud. And then there is the Stefon Diggs of it all, which is the second act of this entire saga. Cardi B moved on from Offset, linked up with Stefon Diggs, gave the relationship what looked like a real shot, and Cardi B and Stefon Diggs even welcomed a baby together, which for a minute made it look like maybe this was the real beginning of Cardi B's next chapter. But Cardi B does not extend runway forever. Cardi B is not the type of woman who hands out 5, 6, 7 mulligans the way she once did in the Offset years. Cardi B gave Stefon Diggs a chance, maybe 2, and when the situation started smelling wrong to Cardi B did exactly what Cardi B rapped about. Cardi B took the baby. Cardi B took herself. Cardi B was gone. And now the same audience that watched Cardi B live out that exact scenario in real time wants to pretend Cardi B is being cryptic in the lyric. There is nothing cryptic here. Cardi B is telling on herself and telling on the doubters at the same time, and honestly the more you replay the snippet, the more you realize Cardi B has been waving this exact flag for months and nobody wanted to admit they saw it. But wait, because the misreading of the lyric was only the opening skirmish. The second Cardi B jumped on live to defend the bar, the timeline pivoted again, this time to Cardi B's body, and now the surgery accusations came flying in from every angle. And Cardi B was not in the mood, not even a little bit, and the way Cardi B ripped into that accusation was the kind of moment you rewind 3 times just to feel the temperature of it. Because this is not the first, not the 5th, not even the 20th time Cardi B has had to answer the same tired question, and Cardi B was finally in a mood to close the file for good. Cardi B said, "Second, I'm also tired of you hating." Cardi B said, "I'm tired of you." Cardi B said, "Why every single time I look snatched, y'all want to be shady like, oh, she got another surgery, she got surgery, she got surgery." And Cardi B said, "I post every week. Every week I post." Cardi B said, "I went out on tour for 2 weeks straight." Cardi B said, "I went from Paris to London to Italy." Cardi B said, "Every week I post, every week I'm busy." Cardi B said, "So when have y'all ever seen me have time off to get surgery?" And that question, that clean, calm, devastating question, is the moment Cardi B shut down half the discourse before it even had a chance to build a following. You could almost hear the surgery truthers quietly closing their laptops in real time. Because Cardi B is not one of these celebrities who hides the work. Cardi B has never hidden the work. Cardi B has openly, publicly, on record, admitted to 2 rounds of liposuction and 1 round of what Cardi B calls an actual reduction, and Cardi B has said that if you want to talk about her breasts, she will talk about her breasts, but that is not the conversation right now. The conversation is about Cardi B's stomach, about Cardi B's frame, about Cardi B's silhouette, and Cardi B is here to explain why she looks the way she looks without going under the knife again. Because here is the part the trolls do not want to hear. Cardi B is naturally petite. Cardi B has said it herself. Cardi B has small hands, a small waist, small feet, small ankles. Cardi B comes from a petite mother, petite sisters, petite aunts on the family tree, and Cardi B says she has always dropped weight easily even after carrying 4 kids to full term, and Cardi B is telling anyone who will listen that biology is not surgery and stop confusing the two. And the wildest part is that anyone who has followed Cardi B since the love and hip-hop days can tell you this is exactly the same frame Cardi B has always had once she rests, once she trains, once she eats clean. Now here is where the story gets even more human, because Cardi B did not stop at the genetics defense. Cardi B walked the audience through exactly why she lost so much weight this year, and the answer is the answer no gossip account wanted to publish, because the answer is not scandalous, the answer is just real life. Cardi B said, "After I gave birth to my son this year, I lost the weight easy, and I will tell you exactly why." Cardi B said, "I went on tour." Cardi B said, "There were some cities where, and I am quoting her directly, the food was straight caca." Cardi B said, "So I would not even eat like that, I would just eat a little." And every woman watching that live understood exactly what Cardi B was communicating, because every woman watching that live has been there, the appetite that disappears, the meals you skip without eating. The reason the misinterpretation traveled so fast is because Cardi B has been placed inside a story where every audience member thinks they know the plot better than the writer. People saw Cardi B, they saw Stefon Diggs, they saw a baby, they saw a breakup, and they filled in the blanks with whatever their group chat was already leaning toward. That is not analysis. That is projection. And Cardi B is calling projection what it is, stupid, in her exact word, stupid, and Cardi B is not apologizing for the word choice either. Cardi B has earned the right to call a thing what it is, and if that ruffles a few feathers on a Tuesday night, so be it. And by the way, in case you missed it, this song is a banger. Let me be very clear about that. The snippet Cardi B previewed is not filler, is not a leak, is not a throwaway. The snippet is heat. The beat has that late summer, top-down, block party energy that Cardi B does better than any other woman in rap right now. The cadence is playful. The confidence is unshakable. And 30 seconds in, you already know the full record is going to run the charts once Cardi B officially drops it. Cardi B teased the clip almost casually, wrote in the caption something along the lines of, like, "Why not?" and then walked away as if she had not just detonated the entire release calendar for whoever else was thinking about dropping this month. That is Cardi B in her prime form. Understated. Deadly. In control. It is the same energy Cardi B walked into the game with, and it is the same energy Cardi B is going to walk out of this news cycle with, no matter how many think pieces get typed up in between. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer this one in the comments, so drop your take below, because I am reading every single one. When you first heard the line, "A man can't trap me, I won't keep him," what did you hear? Did you hear Cardi B saying she would leave a bad relationship without hesitation, baby or no baby? Or did you hear something else entirely, and did the entirely something else get in your head before Cardi B even had a chance to explain it? Because if you heard it the wrong way the first time, and it is the reason Cardi B decided this was the perfect moment to draw the line in bold ink. Let me swing back to the Stefon Diggs question one more time, because I know that is the part everybody is scrolling to hear about. Here is the truth as far as we know it. Cardi B and Stefon Diggs are not together. Cardi B and Stefon Diggs share a child. Cardi B is not out here calling Stefon Diggs a villain by name, and Cardi B is not putting Stefon Diggs on public trial. But Cardi B is very, very clearly saying that whatever expectation Stefon Diggs, or any man, might have had about locking Cardi B down through a shared baby, that expectation was dead on arrival. Cardi B is not the type to stay for the sake of staying. Cardi B is not the type to protect a man's image at the cost of her own peace. And if Stefon Diggs, or anyone in his corner, is reading between the lines of this record hoping to find a reason to be offended, that is on them, that is not on Cardi B. Because Cardi B did not write a diss record here, Cardi B wrote a boundary record, and there is a real difference between the two. Because, and this is the piece that Cardi B keeps trying to explain and the internet keeps refusing to hear, the real target of this lyric is not one man. The real target is a mindset. The real target is the assumption that a woman with a baby has no exit. The real target is every man who ever thought a pregnancy was a leash, every situation where a woman was told to stay for the child, every quiet story of a mother who felt trapped by biology into staying in a relationship that was already dead. Cardi B is speaking to those women. Cardi B is speaking for those women. And Cardi B is saying, out loud, on a beat, in front of a global audience, no. You can have my baby and you still cannot have me. That is a bar that gets tattooed on somebody's forearm before the end of the year, mark my words. Now let me talk about the writing accusation one more time, because it deserves a full lap. The accusation that Cardi B does not write her own material is one of the oldest, laziest, most repeatedly debunked claims in the entire genre. Cardi B has been writing hooks, verses, and full concepts since the mixtape era. Cardi B has walked through freestyles on live radio that would embarrass half the men who question her pen. Cardi B has co-writing credits, publishing paperwork, and a decade of receipts, and the internet still, in the year we are living in, wants to act like a woman with this level of visibility just makes music by accident. Cardi B is done with that conversation. Cardi B said it plainly. Cardi B said, nobody wrote this for me, I know exactly what I said, and Cardi B knew what she was doing when she pressed post. The receipts on that are going to age extremely well. Let me pause and let you sit with something. Cardi B is not just responding to a rumor cycle right now. Cardi B is essentially conducting a masterclass in how to control your own narrative in the streaming era. Cardi B previewed the song. Cardi B watched the discourse. Cardi B waited exactly long enough for the wrong takes to pile up. Cardi B stepped onto live. Cardi B corrected the record in her own voice, in her own words, at her own pace. Cardi B roasted the surgery accusations in the same breath. Cardi B slipped in a story about a breakup that humanized her. Cardi B teased the full song. And then Cardi B walked away and let the clips do the rest of the work for her. That is not accident. That is not luck. That is the artist knowing exactly which levers to pull and which cameras to look into and which comments to leave floating and which comments to burn down. And once you see the choreography of it, you cannot unsee it. And here is a detail nobody is talking about, the way Cardi B handled her tone on that live. Cardi B was not screaming. Cardi B was not crying. Cardi B was not putting on some overproduced performance of grievance. Cardi B was steady, direct, a little bit tired, a little bit amused, and completely in charge of the moment. That tone, the tone of someone who has been through this cycle so many times she does not even need to raise her voice anymore, is the tone of a veteran, not a rookie. And any rapper watching from home should be taking notes, because Cardi B just showed everyone how to answer the timeline without losing an inch of dignity. There are artists a decade into the game who still cannot pull that tone off, and Cardi B did it in a t-shirt on Instagram Live with almost no preparation. Now let me widen the frame one more time, because we cannot talk about this lyric without talking about the environment Cardi B is releasing music into. Female hip-hop is in one of its most competitive stretches in decades. Every week there is a new headline about who is beefing with who is subbing who is stealing whose flow, who is copying whose look. Cardi B has been dragged into a dozen of these micro-wars this year alone, and Cardi B has still managed to keep her name at the very top of the release conversation. That is not a coincidence. That is Cardi B refusing to be reduced to a supporting character in somebody else's storyline. And this lyric, this small, 3-second, misread, viral lyric, is Cardi B reminding the entire game that when it comes to actually making a song people can chant back at a festival, she is still holding the belt. And she is not passing it, not this year. Let me also address the argument, quietly floating around, that this song is going to be the song of the summer. I want to be honest with you. Summer is almost gone. We are past the window where a single record can dominate the beach playlists and the cookout speakers the way it could if it had dropped in May. That is just calendar math. But that does not mean this record is not going to run. This record is going to run into the fall. This record is going to run into the tour rehearsals. This record is going to run into the awards conversation. Because Cardi B is not aiming for a viral moment. Cardi B is aiming for a viral career. And the difference between the two is the difference between a firework and a lighthouse. One flashes and disappears. The other keeps sailors alive. Now, before I let you go, let me tell you the part one think is going to age the best out of this entire live stream. Cardi B said, very casually, that when she goes traveling, most of the time it is not for vacation, it is not for shopping, it is not for photo ops. Cardi B said, most of the time when she travels, she is going away specifically to focus on new music, to lock in on the record, to shut out the noise. So think about that. Every time you saw a Cardi B post from Paris or London or Milan and rolled your eyes and said she is just flexing, she was actually cooking. She was actually writing. She was actually in a room somewhere building the exact record that just broke your timeline. And that is going to be a whole different conversation once the full album finally drops, because half the people who accused Cardi B of coasting are the same people who are about to pretend they were day one supporters when the streams start rolling in. Here is my honest read on where all this goes next. I think Cardi B is closer to a full release than she is letting on. I think the snippet was not just a tease, I think the snippet was a soft launch. I think the record is done, or nearly done. I think a video is either shot or in the storyboard phase. And I think Cardi B is watching the reaction to this snippet in real time to decide exactly how loud to go with the rollout. If the misinterpretation had killed the momentum, Cardi B could have paused and repositioned. But because the misinterpretation only made the bar bigger, only made the conversation louder, only made more people scramble to hear the full song, Cardi B just got handed a free promotional cycle worth millions of dollars. And she did not pay a single publicist to make it happen. That is the kind of accidental genius that only lands on artists who have been marinating in the culture their entire adult lives. Now let me also flag the part that is going to matter to the Barty gang specifically. Cardi B teased another tour. Cardi B said, in the middle of everything else, that she wants to go back out, that she wants to do it again, that she loved performing at Essence, that she loved being on stage even when it was messy, even when the acoustics were off, even when she felt like her voice was echoing off the back wall. Tell me whether you think the album is closer than Cardi B is letting on. And tell me, and this is the one I really want to know, do you think Cardi B is being treated fairly by the internet right now, or do you think there is a specific type of scrutiny being aimed at her that other artists in her tier are not getting? Be honest. Be specific. I will be in the comments reading every one of them, and if the conversation is spicy enough, we might make a whole part 2 out of just the responses. And if you have been holding on to a Cardi B story we have not covered yet, drop that too, because there is more coming and I want to know what angle you want next. Now before I get out of here, one last thing, because I would be doing you a disservice if I did not say it out loud. Watch the next 48 hours very carefully. When Cardi B goes this quiet, this composed, this deliberately controlled on a live stream, she is usually 2 or 3 days away from dropping something bigger. So if a full song appears on a Friday, do not act surprised. If a music video drops without a warning post, do not act surprised. If a tour date leaks, do not act surprised. Cardi B is telegraphing her next move without saying a word, and the people paying attention are already lining up their pre-saves. And here is one more subtle receipt I want you to hold on to. Cardi B has quietly liked, reposted, and reshared exactly the kind of fan edits that only get amplified when a rollout is about to escalate, which means the machine is already turning before the official announcement even lands. Let me leave you with one final thought, because I think this is the piece that separates this news cycle from every other news cycle Cardi B has ever been dragged into. Cardi B is not a woman who needs the internet's permission to exist. Cardi B is not asking to be liked. Cardi B is not begging for a redemption arc. Cardi B is not chasing an apology. Cardi B is standing in her own frame, telling her own story, in her own voice, and daring the internet to keep up. And when a woman with Cardi B's platform decides to reclaim her narrative that publicly, that calmly, and that clearly, the algorithm has no choice but to move her name back to the front of the timeline whether the haters like it or not. This is the Cardi B era we are in now, and if you were not paying attention before, you are absolutely going to be paying attention from here on out. Let me give you the receipts on the culture side. Within 90 minutes of Cardi B posting that snippet, hip-hop blogs had published takes, reaction channels had stitched onto TikTok, and rival artists in the female rap lane had quietly liked posts about the controversy without saying anything. That is the Cardi B effect. One line, 30 seconds of audio, and the ecosystem tilts toward her orbit for the rest of the week. Here is another piece of the puzzle nobody is putting together. Cardi B did this live stream on her own turf, on her own schedule, without an interview host asking softball questions, without a magazine trying to shape the story after the fact, without a podcast trying to trim the spicy parts out in post-production. Cardi B went raw. Cardi B went unedited. Cardi B looked into the front camera and delivered the whole message in one sitting, and by doing that, Cardi B took the story out of every editor's hands and put it back where it always belonged, which is directly in front of the audience with no filter in between. And there is one more layer to peel back here. Notice that Cardi B did not, at any point during that live stream, mention the name Stefon Diggs directly. Cardi B talked around him, past him, over him, but Cardi B never handed him the free spotlight of a direct name drop. That is not by accident. That is the discipline of a rapper who has already learned that giving a rival or an ex a name check on your own microphone is the same as giving them a co-writing credit on your own headline. So Cardi B kept the frame on Cardi B. Every clip that got pulled from that live is Cardi B's face, Cardi B's words, Cardi B's story. That is the Cardi B chessboard in action. And let me flag something that is going to become a bigger story over the next week. There are rumors, and I want to underline the word rumors, that Cardi B has been in the studio with a couple of very high-profile producers, and that the full track this snippet was pulled from is only the tip of a much bigger project. If those rumors turn out to be true, and if the pacing of previous Cardi B rollouts is any guide, we could be looking at a full body of work landing before the end of the year, which would completely reshape the awards conversation heading into the next cycle. So here is my final read on where all of this is heading. Cardi B is standing at the exact intersection where a new album, a new tour, a new lyrical era, and a new personal chapter all cross paths. Cardi B has the record. Cardi B has the receipts. Cardi B has the fanbase. Cardi B has the platform. And Cardi B has the willingness to sit on a live stream and correct the record herself when the internet tries to twist her words. That combination is exactly the combination that turns a good year into a legacy year, and I think we are watching the front end of a Cardi B legacy year unfold in real time. That is the whole scoop from my side. If any of this landed with you, hit that subscribe button so you catch the next update the moment it lands, tap the notification bell so you never miss a Cardi B breakdown, and I will catch you on the next one. Stay locked in, because with Cardi B, there is always another chapter about to open, and I am going to be right here breaking it down the second it drops.